오늘의 영상은 좀 I finished. Hey, it's Aja. Welcome back to another video. I hope some of you guys got a chance to catch my live stream that I did last week, Saturday. But if you didn't, I hope to be doing more live streams moving forward. So maybe you can catch the next one. But today's video is going to be about why it's important to learn Korean if you're going to come to Korea. Now, I know I did a video a few weeks back where I talked about how I am quitting learning Korean and I am not going to try to learn it anymore. But I made that video in Korean. So that just goes to show you that I already have obtained a certain level of proficiency in Korean. So in other words, do as I say, not as I do. I may have quit learning Korean, but if you are gonna come to Korea, you should definitely learn some Korean. And I'm gonna tell you why. Did you ever notice how when the famous idols and different people go and visit the United States, they try to speak in English when they arrive. They go on talk shows and they put forward their best English speaker to communicate to the crowd, or they bring a translator, and they don't have to do that. They could definitely just speak in Korean the whole time. But one, most people would not understand them. Two, some people might consider it rude and or insensitive because it puts an expectation on the locals to just automatically adhere and understand them, right? We don't want to do that to other cultures as well, right? You can't just go into someone else's homeland and expect them to change themselves to suit you. You can't go to someone else's country and just put the expectation on them to understand you. It's kind of rude. So today I'm going to be telling you why I think it's important for you to learn some Korean if you come to Korea. First reason I'm going to give you is necessity. There are certain things that you cannot do in Korea without Korean, which means that you're going to either have to have somebody do it for you, or you're gonna need to be able to know a certain amount of Korean to do it yourself. That's like, for example, if you want to go somewhere, there isn't English written on every sign. Like, yes, major like buses and subways and things like that, they will have English written down. You should be able to get your way around in general. But there are certain locations that you can't get to without knowing some Korean, or you won't be able to look it up on Google Maps. You'll need one of the Korean apps to look it up. In that case, you'll either have to ask a friend or you'll figure it out yourself. That also includes like ordering food at certain restaurants. Every restaurant doesn't have English on the menu, and every restaurant doesn't have pictures. So if you want to be able to understand what it has written down, you should at least be able to read. Yeah, so there are certain things you can only search for in Korean. Somebody might say, meet me at this location. You can't find it unless you type it in Korean. Sometimes certain addresses are only available in Korean, or building names. And taxi drivers. If you're near a military base, yeah, you can get a taxi driver. They'll all speak English. That's fine. And probably Seoul Station, Incheon Airport, places like that will have taxi drivers that speak some level of English. But if you're just somewhere random and you need to get somewhere else, you're gonna need to be able to either tell your address to the taxi driver in Korean, or you're gonna need to be able to at least say something like, turn left, turn right, drop me off here. So those kind of things, you need to know some level of Korean to communicate. That was the first one, necessity. The second one I'm gonna say is convenience. So beyond things you absolutely need to know, there are some things that is just easier if you know Korean. So for example, going to a convenience store. Most likely the people behind the counter don't speak English. Some of them do, but most of them don't. So even when it comes to them telling you how much things cost. If you don't understand in Korean, then you're gonna be like lost, right? You need to know numbers, you need to know how to read. I might need to ask for a bag after I cash out. If I just say I need a bag, they're not gonna know what I'm saying. I could show with my hands like that I want a bag, and eventually someone would figure it out, but it's just so much easier to say it in Korean. They're gonna ask you if you need your receipt, and it's gonna be hard if you don't know what they're asking. You'll probably figure it out eventually, but that's why I say this is about convenience. Yes, you could figure out a lot without knowing Korean, but it would be more convenient if you did. Next, I'm gonna say making relationships. So friendships, of course, like it's gonna be easier to establish friendships with people if you have a language in common. And it's been my experience that a lot of native Korean speakers do not feel comfortable and confident speaking in English. So that means it can help them open up and be willing to befriend you if you can speak a certain level of Korean. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be great, but just showing that effort and being willing to make mistakes in front of them would make them willing to do the same for you and maybe talk to you in English. But there's very small chance of you actually being able to make friends and form those kind of relationships without speaking some Korean. And that brings me onward to the dating kind of relationships. I hate to break it to you, but your fantasy K-drama man does not speak English. I'm sorry, he doesn't. So if you have this idea in your head about who you want to date in Korea, I gotta tell you, most Koreans speak Korean. So you should too. If you want to form meaningful relationships, you need to have a language in common. There are, of course, some people in Korea who speak English, and that's awesome. And if you find one of those special and unique humans, that will be great. But what happens when your relationship becomes deeper and then you need to meet their parents, meet their family? Their family probably doesn't speak English. It would be more helpful to you if you spoke some Korean, right? And just know that all those K-pop idols that y'all are fantasizing about, they hardly speak English too. They speak Korean. So let's say you get a chance to go to a fan meeting. How are you going to talk to them? Beyond hello, or how can you ask that burning question that's been in your soul since you first saw them on TV? Yeah, you're gonna need to know some Korean. So that was reason number 3. And finally, and I think personally that this is the most important reason, respect. It's respect for a culture and a community to learn their language. Now, there are reasons why I don't feel the same way about people entering the United States. We don't have an official language, first of all. Like, I know it may come as a shock to several of you that English is not the official language of America. In fact, America does not have an official language. I can only communicate these things from the perspective of an American because I'm an American. But, you know, every other country except for America kind of requires and expects their citizens to learn multiple languages. So most people besides us do know more than one language, and I think that we should probably join them. So if you're American watching this, I'm talking to you even more than everyone else, okay? You need to learn a language. It's helpful for, you know, being part of, words are hard. With America being a melting pot and a place of multiple cultures, it's fine to bring your own culture into a place like that, and you know, that's what the country's supposed to be all about, right? But Korea is more of a Korean culture. It's one culture. And if you want to show respect for that culture, there are many ways you can do it. You can learn more about the history, learn more about the food, be willing and open to try new things, research deeper than surface level, know more than just who the famous people are right now. Maybe learn about some of the country's past. But a very effective way to show that you have respect for the culture is to learn the language. I want to reiterate that you don't have to be fluent. Nobody is expecting the foreigners in Korea to be fluent and to know perfectly. But it's just a matter of showing that you give a dang. So, those were my reasons why I think it's important to learn some Korean if you're going to visit Korea. So I would love to hear back from you guys. What are some reasons that you could add to this list? Why do you think it's important to learn a language when you enter into a new country? Or why don't you think it's important? Or why don't you think you need to learn the language? And I think if you like the video, you should like the video. I would love to hear from you, so leave a comment. You know, if you watched this far, it's probably not just because you're interested in knowing more about Korea. It's because I'm in this video. I'm giving you the information, right? And I'm in all of my videos. So you should definitely subscribe, okay? You should join the party. I'm editing right now, and I realized that for some reason I totally forgot to say goodbye at the end of this video, and that is totally unacceptable to me. So bye.